Hello and welcome to today's EcoCast event. The EcoCast topic today is Office 365 and Azure Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us on today's event. My name is David Davis of ActualTech Media. If you haven't joined one of these EcoCast or MegaCast events in the past, you should know that this event was created by ActualTech Media to help educate you as IT professionals about the latest and greatest enterprise technology solutions, to help you do it as efficiently as possible. You don't have to leave your home or office. You don't have to go downtown to the convention center. You can do it from the comfort of your workspace or home office, whatever it might be, and you can get all your questions answered. We've got some expert speakers coming up, and we highly encourage questions and have a chance to win some very cool prizes as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us on today's event. Before we jump into it, we have a little bit of housekeeping here that we first need to cover. We will have 3 Amazon $500 gift cards to give out on the event today. I'll talk about the eligibility requirements for those in just a moment. Again, I highly encourage questions. We will have dedicated Q&A sessions with each of today's expert presenters. And you can ask those questions there in the questions box. It says questions and answers on your audience console. And the audience console in your web browser there is actually really cool. You can click on the title bar of each of the windows, and you can hold down and drag them around so you can move them. You can also resize them if you go to the corner. So I encourage you to make that questions box maybe a little bit bigger, and then make the slides window as large as will fit on your desktop or laptop computer, because you're going to want to see the architectural diagrams and live screen demos that you might catch on today's event, you might see on today's event. So ask as many questions as you would like. I appreciate all the comments coming in. Hello from Charlotte. Hello from Denver, Nova Scotia. Thank you, everyone, for joining us from across the United States and Canada and around the world in many cases. Thank you to our loyal audience, loyal viewers out there. Now, we also have social. We'll be doing some social around the event. I'll be tweeting about the event using the hashtag. The hashtag for today's event is Azure EcoCast. And if you click on the Twitter icon on the bottom of your console, that'll bring up a Twitter box there. And if you just click in the box where it says Azure EcoCast, you can type a message, click submit, and it will automatically be posted to Twitter. If you haven't used this before, it will do a Twitter authorization. Your credentials are, of course, kept just between you and Twitter, the standard Twitter authorization. And I'll be monitoring Twitter throughout the event, retweeting just about anything that anyone says and following people who tweet about the event. So we encourage social. We also have a number of resources from today's presenters. If you click on the Handouts tab, you'll find there 2 PDFs, one from Duo Security, our first presenter, and one from Veeam. And if you open both of those PDFs, you'll see there's some cool stuff in there. There is the Duo Security Essential Guide to Zero Trust for Microsoft Applications, and the Veeam 6 Critical Reasons for Office 365 Backup. So I encourage you to check those out. And then, like I said, we'll have 3 Amazon $500 gift card giveaways. The first one after our first presenter, the final 2 after the second presenter or the final presenter. The requirements to be eligible for those prize drawings, you must be here on the live event. If you're watching this on demand, I'm sorry. The drawings have already occurred. All prize winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to ActualTech Media. Full prize terms and conditions can be found if you click on the Handouts tab. You will find those there where it says prize terms and conditions. Through the MegaCast and EcoCast event series, we have given out thousands of dollars to charities, thanks to generous attendees such as yourself. So if you'd like to donate your prize value to charity, we would love to help you do that. Social media. The hashtag, let's see, is actually Azure EcoCast. We need to correct that. Sorry about that. But you can follow ActualTech Media on Twitter, and you can follow me, David M. Davis. I'll be tweeting about the hashtag, tweeting about the event over on Twitter as well. We've got a number of other social media options for you. We have a 10 on Tech podcast. We have a Facebook group and also our YouTube channel. So feel free to visit those as well. And with that, it's time for our keynote presentation from Mr. Ned Bellavance. That is the 5 things that you should know about Office 365 and Azure. Ned is an Azure MVP from Microsoft and has created many training courses around Azure and Office 365. So I'm excited to have his presentation here on today's event. This is just about 5 minutes long, and it's the 5 things you need to know about Office 365 and Azure.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ned Bellavance, Ned1313 on Twitter, and this is 5 things to know about Office 365 and Azure. Okay, so number 1 is to secure your identity. Identity is the new currency when it comes to the cloud. You no longer have a network perimeter that all your applications live behind. When it comes to accessing services within the cloud, it's all about identity. So how do you secure that identity? Well, number 1 is to enable multi-factor authentication. You absolutely have to do this. And many cloud services like Office 365 and Microsoft Azure have made it relatively straightforward to do that. So that's highly recommended, not just for administrators, but also for regular end users. There's also a feature within Office 365 and Azure called conditional access, and that enables you to determine the level of access for a user based on things like their location. Within Azure Active Directory and Office 365, users can have the role of global admin, and just like domain administrators, you should try to limit the membership of that global admins as much as possible. And you can do that by creating custom roles for users that do need to perform administrative functions, but don't need global admin access. There's also a feature called Privileged Identity Management that allows you to temporarily grant elevated permissions to a user and then revoke their permissions once they've completed whatever the task is. In addition to securing your identity, you also need to secure your data. In the same way that you can no longer assume that your identity lives within a perimeter, your data no longer lives within a perimeter. It's going to move outside of your corporate network. It's important to apply things like labeling to your data so you know what kind of data you're dealing with, and then based off of those labels, you can determine whether encryption needs to be applied before this information leaves your organization. And the way that you can do that is through policies. Azure Information Protection allows you to leverage labeling and policies to determine what level of protection is needed for data and where data can move around your organization and beyond. In addition to securing your data, you also have to protect your data. There's a false idea out there that the cloud is responsible for protecting all of your data in all the ways you need it protected, and that's not necessarily true. For issues like retention, Office 365 doesn't know what your retention requirements are for different kinds of data. That's something you need to go in and configure yourself. Likewise, Office 365 and Microsoft Azure don't back anything up by default. Your Exchange Online mailboxes, your SharePoint sites, your Azure VMs, none of those are backed up by default. That's something you need to turn on by choice. You may also need to archive data outside of Office 365 for long-term retention and compliance. There are some features that exist within Azure and Office 365 for that, but you may want to store those archives on a service that's outside of Azure and Office 365. When you think about who's responsible for applying all of this security and protection, it's going to be your people. And so you do have to train your people to interact with Office 365 and Microsoft Azure. And that absolutely includes administrators. They are going to be encountering a completely new management plane when they move to 365 and Azure. You need to provide proper training so they know how to interact with that management plane. Likewise, your end users are going to be presented with new software, features, and functionality. There's a ton of awesome improvements when it comes to security and features within Office 365, but if your end users have not received the proper training for it, they're going to have no idea how to use it. The training also needs to be an ongoing effort. The features and services within Office 365 and Microsoft Azure are constantly evolving. Your training efforts also have to be constantly evolving to keep your admins and end users informed. Finally, and this one is not necessarily obvious, which is why I bring it up, you need to plan your network to adapt to the needs of Office 365 and Microsoft Azure. One of the top things is that your traffic patterns are going to change once you make the migration. Whereas most of your traffic was going back to a local data center for applications, once you move those applications to Office 365 and Microsoft Azure, the traffic now goes there as opposed to your data center. So you're going to need to plan for performance when it comes to your egress links to Office 365 and Azure. One of the more common networking patterns at large organizations is to backhaul all internet traffic to a central site for security and examination. However, once you move to Office 365 and Azure, that traffic pattern probably doesn't make sense anymore. What makes more sense is to plan for egress at the branch site. You are going to have to put in some level of traffic inspection and security at those egress sites, but your end users are going to see significant improvement in performance. So those are the big 5 things that you need to know about Office 365 and Microsoft Azure. Secure your identity, secure your data, protect your data, train your people, and plan your network. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right, great presentation there by Mr. Ned Bellavance, Microsoft Cloud MVP and Pluralsight author. You can reach Ned on Twitter, Ned1313, or his blog and podcast, nedinthecloud.com. And before I introduce you to our first presenter today, we've got 3 quick poll questions for you. The first one is there on your screen, and that is, what is your industry vertical? You should be able to just scroll down. I know it's kind of a long list. There's a lot of verticals in the world. So you may need to scroll down if you don't see your vertical on the first page. And I am going to share the results of these poll questions with you so you can see how you stack up with your peers. And it's always interesting to see, based on the topic of the event, the types of verticals and industry, organizations that join these events. So I'll give you just a moment to answer this poll question, and then I'll share the results with you. We've got a lot of responses coming in. Thank you, everyone, for responding to the poll, and thank you, everyone, for all the great comments there in the questions and answers box. All right, looks like most everyone has responded. Thank you for those. If one person said they can't see the option, if you're having trouble, I'd recommend just refreshing your web browser 9 times out of 10. That will resolve it, and you can then answer the poll question. All right, let me share the results now and take a look at this. Let's see, 10% healthcare, about, I'd say 13% are K-12 education, local government, state, federal, higher education, 10% finance and banking. That's good to see. Of course, 23% technology. We always have a lot of great technology companies on our events. 9% manufacturing. So some real good statistics there. Thank you, everyone, for responding to that. Here's another quick question. Should be easy to answer. How many people work at your company? So just answer the question there with the company size that corresponds to your company, and I'll share these results with you as well. All right, thank you everyone who responded to that poll question. Here are the results. 23% are 100 to 500, 13% 2,500 to 5,000, 20% are 10,000 plus, all the way down to 8% who are small shops, 1 to 25 employees. All right, last poll question is on the screen, and that is, what's your time frame for updating your existing or selecting a new cloud solution? Basically, you're on this event to learn about solutions for Office 365 and Azure. So, what's your time frame? Are you looking for some new security or data protection solutions immediately, or in the next 12 to 24 months, or you don't exactly have a time frame right now? Again, this is the last question before I introduce you to our first presenter.
And now I'm excited to introduce our first presenter on today's event. That is Leah Ladeker, Product Manager at Duo Security. Leah, take it away.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to chatting with you guys today about how we can use Duo to help protect your Azure and Office 365 environment. So it's really about securing the workforce, the workloads, and the workplace. So I'll start by giving a little bit of background here. And there's been a big shift in the IT landscape. Users and devices are moving outside of what we know as the traditional network and moving towards the cloud. And as this is happening, we have different types of users that didn't necessarily have before, like contractors, third-party vendors, and remote workers that all need to connect to the corporate network in order to be able to do their jobs. They're also increasingly using their own devices, like their smartphones and their tablets, and they want to be able to do their jobs from wherever they are and access their applications and networks from wherever they so choose. And meanwhile, these applications and servers, containers, and other workloads are found communicating to each other, and they're communicating to each other in both cloud infrastructure like Azure or AWS, sometimes both, and also with data centers. And at the same time, we have an introduction of new smart devices known as Internet of Things, and they're another entry point into the need to access the network. So as a result of this, you have users and devices that are moving outside of the traditional network, and they're expanding what we define as the perimeter. And new business challenges have emerged because of this. One thing that changed is there are increasing points of access, meaning that there's a larger attack surface, and more gaps in visibility, and new questions arise because of this lack of visibility across your applications and networks and your users and devices. And the big question here is, can we actually trust these connections? And let's think about that for a minute. So think about, like, for your organization, do you know if your users are really who we think they are as they connect to applications? Are their devices healthy? Do they have good hygiene? And what I mean by that is their software up to date on their devices? And do they have certain security features enabled, like encryption or biometric screen lock or Touch ID on an Apple device? And what's even connected across the network? What kinds of devices are they? And should they even be talking to each other? And if they are talking to each other, how do we get insight into and control these networks connections? And finally, what kind of data is in our cloud applications or cloud applications? Is that data sensitive or is it critical? And who or what should really be accessing it? At the most basic level, you need to be able to secure how someone, any type of user, or something, any type of device, which could include your endpoints, your operational technology, your manufacturing equipment, are accessing your work assets, like your workloads, your servers, or your containers, and how all of this is affecting your cloud infrastructure. And this access can really happen anywhere in your environment. And the connections are really what we need to secure by gaining visibility and control and verifying the trust between these connections. The trust is really key here. So today we'll talk about securing the three main points of access: your workforce, which is your users and their devices that are accessing applications that may live in the cloud, like Azure, for example, or may also live in data centers; your workloads, like your applications that are communicating with your databases, containers, and servers. This could be like your the Salesforce, for example; and your workplace, which is providing specific access to the network and securing access across your network as well. So think about segmenting these lines of business. You've got guests who might need internet access. You've got contractors, including consumers. And you also now have enterprise IoT devices, like your Nest badges and your scanners. And many of these IoT devices need to access the same types of network and applications as your users do. But at the same time, they don't need full access to the network. So what's the right level that they need here? So as we move into this new IT landscape, we have new threats that have emerged because of these business challenges. And these threats target the identity, meaning the users and their devices. For example, 81% of breaches now involve compromised credentials. And this really shows us that passwords are an effective way to get past the traditional perimeter and get access into applications completely undetected. When it comes to your applications, 54% of web app vulnerabilities have public exploits that are available to them by hackers. So this means that if the servers and applications aren't patched, they're still left open to open flaws that can be exploited by an attacker to get access to your systems. And finally, your devices. Kaspersky Labs has found that there's been a 300% rise in new IoT malware variants from 2017 to 2018. So this proves that connecting devices are being targeted more than ever by attackers that know that they can leverage these new smart devices to gain access to your network. So knowing all of this, what do we actually do about it? So one way is to take a zero trust approach to secure access to everything across your IT environment. So this would allow you to prevent a data breach before it happens by enabling policy-based controls for every access attempt to your application, to your workloads, and your network. And with the zero trust approach, you can gain visibility into who and what is accessing your system in order to identify risks and indicators of a breach of trust. And finally, you can reduce your overall attack surface, contain breaches, and stop an attacker's lateral movement by enforcing very granular controls that allow you to segment your network and your workloads. So when you compare a traditional security approach to a zero trust approach, you find that in the old approach, trust is based solely on the network location the access request originates from. So this means that once you're in the network, you're golden. And we've now seen that that's really not the case anymore. And in a zero trust approach, trust is really more dynamic and adaptive, and it's really important to establish trust at the point of access each time there is a request. And this approach really helps prevent attackers from moving laterally within the network to get to your data. And if the security happens right at the point of access and only allows the right users and devices to gain access into the system. So in addition to better access security, a zero trust approach also supports modern enterprise models, which include things like people bringing their own device, BYOD, cloud applications, and hybrid solutions that include both on-prem and in cloud. And when we talk about what that means for Cisco's products specifically, as you guys know, Duo was acquired by Cisco now just over a year ago. So we're part of Cisco Zero Trust Solutions now. And we have solutions that cover policy-based controls while gaining visibility into your users, your devices, and your components across your entire environment. It also enables you to provide detailed logs, get reports and alerts that can help you to better detect and to just respond to threats right away. It also allows you to provide more secure access and protect against gaps in visibility, which reduces overall attack surface. And going into that in a little bit more detail, what we mean by that is we verify the trust for your workforce by verifying that your user is who they say they are, ensuring they have access only to the applications that they need and when they need them, and establishing that their device is secure and is trusted. We also verify trust in the workloads by identifying what applications are running, what is communicating with applications and data, and verifying that that communication with the workloads are secure and trusted. And we verify trust in the workplace by ensuring that the users and devices that need to authenticate are doing so before they're connected to the network, and tracking what they're actually allowed insight into. So going into Duo a little bit more specifically, the way that we establish trust in the workforce is in order to prevent breaches caused by stolen passwords, we verify the identities of the users using strong multi-factor authentication. This adds another layer of security that ensures that your users are who they say they are before they're granted access to the application. And to gain visibility, you get insight into the security hygiene of a user's devices. So this is things like ensuring they're running up-to-date software, that their devices are encrypted, passcode protected, and this really helps to identify whether or not the device is trusted. That might also mean whether it's managed or not managed. And we also help you to respond to potential breaches of trust by enforcing access policies for every application that limits access to trusted users and devices. You can also block access attempts that don't meet your security standards. Now we can go into how Duo and Microsoft work together. So Microsoft is one of Duo's top strategic partners. And every day, Microsoft customers are using Duo's MFA and robust policy engine to protect their Microsoft applications. We have over 12 million users that are protecting their Microsoft applications and over 650,000 users that use Duo to access Microsoft email. And you can see some of our joint customers here on this slide, like Under Armour, Veeam, and Expedia. But I'd like to go into a little bit more detail on a customer example. It was interesting to see on the poll that a lot of you are in the healthcare industry, and that'll be the example that we go into today. So here we have one of our customers, the University of Louisville Hospital, that is working to adopt a zero trust security framework to reduce their attack surface. And the hospital needed to protect their Microsoft Office 365 along with other applications that are critical for their business. So once they actually deployed Duo, they were immediately able to consolidate several projects. These projects included first their MFA, multi-factor authentication, their single sign-on project, and their MDM, mobile device management project, which then helped to reduce their overall total cost of ownership by more than 50%. So by using Duo, the U of L hospital got visibility into all the devices that were connected to their network externally and the location of those devices. So they were able to see full device industry through a single pane of glass and be able to enforce policies such as blocking access to applications from unknown locations. So this, in conjunction with their implementation of MFA, has reduced their overall attack surface effectively and efficiently. Because if you're a hospital, it's probably pretty important for you to know where the medical records are being accessed from, for example. So by deploying Duo, U of L's hospital was able to protect sensitive health information like PHI data without impeding the clinician's productivity because they can still do their job from wherever they are, which is extremely important in that industry. And Duo also helped them to meet regulatory compliance requirements like HIPAA and PCI, and developed and followed procedures that ensured the confidentiality and the security of PHI. And I'll tell you what their CISO said at the end of this project. He said, "Our long-term vision is to adopt a zero-trust security framework, and we have taken our first step. We were able to implement a strong security controls without disrupting the business of helping patients. And Duo has helped us to do it easily and securely." So we can help any organization get to the Microsoft Cloud faster. And we do that by working with all of these popular Microsoft applications, both on-premise and on cloud environments. We tie into your existing directory, whether that's Active Directory and Azure Active Directory, and federation services like ADFS and Azure. And we also protect your email solutions and support your migration path to the cloud. Additionally, we protect Windows desktop logins, including remote access, local access, and server access. So we'll go into a little bit more detail next on how we synchronize with Microsoft directories. So one of the interesting things about Microsoft is it has scale that few companies have in the marketplace. So over 17.5 million organizations currently use Microsoft products, which includes 90% of Fortune 500 companies. And they're really becoming a key player in the identity space, gaining momentum with over 1.2 billion identities across personal, work, and school accounts. So organizations that have an existing on-premise Microsoft Active Directory domain, an Open LDAP directory, or an Azure Active Directory domain can import their users, their phones, and their groups directly into Duo by using Directory Sync. The user information for imported users is updated regularly to reflect the latest user status and their associated device information and hygiene. And you can also deprovision these users by disabling the external directory accounts or by removing those users directly from sync groups. And Duo actually never touches the primary credentials here. We're always the second factor, but we do leverage them to allow organizations to add a second layer of security. So here's a technical diagram that goes into that in a little bit more detail. So what you can see here is that by using Duo's cloud service, you can import users directly from Azure without any on-premise software. And if you're importing users via LDAP from Active Directory or Open LDAP directories, it does require you to install the Duo authentication proxy. So the ebook on how to protect your Microsoft applications, that's the takeaway from this presentation, will actually go into more detail and provide you with the information that you need if you're looking to try this out for yourself. So let's talk about actually syncing users for auto-enrollment. So your users will need to have the Duo mobile app installed in order to get started. And the way that they do that is from the Duo dashboard, the administrator will need to go into the user tab and click on this link here to send activation links. This will prompt the users to install Duo Mobile who don't already have it on their devices already. Once they have it installed, we have a broad range of authentication options that can be used for both your Microsoft applications and other third applications that you may have. This includes our flagship Duo Push, UTS tokens, wearables like the Apple Watch, and biometrics, just to name a few. We have received some feedback in the past from physicians who really like doing the push authentication from their Apple Watch because they don't have to whip out another device when they're in the middle of meeting with patients. So in addition to protecting Microsoft Azure, Duo can be used to protect a suite of products in Microsoft Office 365. And this is really Microsoft's most popular productivity tool and one of their fastest growing businesses with over 135 million monthly active users. And because Duo can be used for both on-premise and cloud applications, many of our joint customers use Duo to protect their Outlook instance, and they continue to use Duo as they move to Office 365. So whether or not you're fully moved or whether you have some users on both, you can still continue to use Duo to protect both types of users. And you can also use any of Duo's authentication methods to secure access to Exchange and Office 365 deployments. So this helps you to enforce roles and device-specific policies like your third-party vendors or remote employees. Or you may want to think about having different policies for accessing your email in different locations. Or you may want to check if the device is encrypted first. So Duo solution is supported by all email clients. So whatever your Microsoft email solution might be, Duo can help you to protect your environment. So in summary, you can apply a zero trust strategy to protecting your Microsoft applications with Duo. You can do this by first verifying the identity of the users with strong multi-factor authentication, ensuring the trustworthiness of the device with endpoint and context visibility, and by enforcing risk-based policies and adaptive access policies with using per application policies that vary based on your risk tolerance. And I will stick around if you guys have any questions. Thank you so much for having me again today, David, and thank you for tuning in.
Absolutely. Yeah, great presentation, Leah. We do have some questions here for you from the audience. I see them coming in. While we do that, I'm just going to pop up this poll question, and it says, what additional information would you like about the Duo security solution? And you should note that this is a multi-select question, so you can select multiple options on there. We'll just leave that up while we do some Q&A. Let's see here. Peter is first asking, what kind of Microsoft Office 365 licenses do you need to leverage or use the options that you presented, Leah?
Sure. So Duo is actually available directly with P1. So any Microsoft edition that has conditional access included on it will be able to use any of Duo's robust policy engine with that.
Okay, nice. So nothing additional to buy from Microsoft to use this, right?
That's correct. So as long as you're on, Microsoft P1 edition, you can integrate with Duo. We have native integration there.
Okay. Another question here: are there other applications that Duo and Microsoft customers can protect with MFA?
Yeah. So typically, our joint customers with Microsoft, they tend to also protect applications outside of Microsoft with Duo. Those typically tend to be things like their VPN instance or their privileged access managers. Those tend to be some of the top two that they protect in addition to protecting their Microsoft suite of products.
Okay, nice. And are there any other upcoming integrations that Microsoft and Duo have planned together?
We do. We are looking to do a native integration with Microsoft Intune, so this will help users be able to protect Intune using Duo's trusted endpoints. And we're looking at how we can integrate with Microsoft's new SIM, their Sentinel, as well.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I look forward to seeing those. Another question here, basically, how do they get started? Do they go to duo.com and then sign up? Is there a free trial, or how does that work?
Yes, great question. You can go to duo.com and click sign up, and that'll give you a 30-day free trial to get started and see how it's working for your organization.
Nice. Okay. Well, it looks like that's all the questions we have right now, but really great presentation. Leah, thank you so much for being on the event today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Awesome. For more information, make sure you visit duo.com, sign up for that free trial, and make sure that you enable multi-factor authentication on your Office 365 and Azure accounts for that extra special level of security that everyone really needs today. And also go to the Handouts tab and download that essential guide to Zero Trust for Microsoft applications. It's a really nice, really visually appealing guide, I should point out. I like that. So it looks like a good read. Make sure you check that out. We just got some feedback here. Sam says, Duo is awesome. We love using it. So I always love to get that kind of feedback from the audience. Thank you, Sam. And thank you for all the other questions that came in there. And now it's time for our first gift card giveaway. We have an Amazon $500 gift card that's going out to Tony Young from Nebraska. Congratulations, Tony Young from Nebraska. And now I'm excited to introduce the next presenter on today's Solutions for Office 365 and Azure EcoCast. That is Mr. Edward Watson, Product Marketing Manager at Veeam. Edward, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Edward. Take it away.
Sure. So just a quick introduction. My name is Edward Watson, Product Marketing Manager for Veeam Software. Been at Veeam for a few years now, really focusing heavily on our cloud solutions, go-to-market, as well as Office 365 backup. And I know there's varying degrees of understanding of why you need a backup, maybe some misconceptions in the market over what you're supposed to protect, what Microsoft is supposed to protect. And so hopefully today I really want to set the record straight on a few things in terms of why you need a backup, And this is a repeat presentation I did about a month ago, but I've included different information. If you've seen this before, stay on the line, and hopefully you'll see some additional information that might be helpful. So let's just dive right in. So before I get started, I'd actually like to just cover Veeam for those who are not familiar about Veeam. So we started out as really a prime player in the virtualization space for backup, supporting for VMware and Hyper-V environments, moved on to physical, and then have today a vast variety of cloud integrations with hyperscale providers like Azure, IBM Cloud, AWS, as well as managed service providers which actually package Veeam into their offerings. And obviously now in the SaaS space, Office 365, which is what I'll be covering today. And really, if you think of Veeam, we've really moved from that initial backup provider into now a full service platform. Just a few stats here. Obviously, we're on the precipice of $1 billion. We actually exceeded $1 billion this year. And really, one of the stats I'd really love to quickly call out is our NPS score. So like you might have seen in the market, you might have seen this NPS score before. It's really the measurement of how likely a customer would be to recommend to a peer the solution. So really this gives you a good indication that Veeam is alongside the very best companies in the industry in terms of that 3.5 times the industry average. So let's just dive straight into the meat of this presentation, which is the reasons why. So it may come as no surprise, right, that accidental deletion is number one on this list. Accidental deletion, we're humans, mistakes happen. I'm sure someone on this call may have even deleted something they tried to get back that they later found out was actually permanently deleted. We're going to talk a little bit about the retention policy confusion and really how the confusion stems really because of the gaps in understanding what is actually protected and thinking something was protected when it wasn't. So we'll dive into that a little bit. There's internal security threats. There's external security threats. So we'll talk about what those threats are to the data inside Office 365 and how that's different from the infrastructure level that Microsoft takes care of. Obviously, legal and compliance is huge. For our customers especially, we see that there's pressures from HR, there might be pressures from compliance directors internally, where you have to make sure that you have control of your data, that you make sure that you can efficiently restore your documents, emails, and make sure that they're available to meet those critical legal deadlines so you can get those taken care of and move on with your day. Managing hybrids. So I would venture to guess that many of you have migrated to Office 365, or maybe you have a combination of on-prem and Exchange and Microsoft Office 365, but really whatever the case may be, there's complexity in that, so we want to make sure that there's a streamlined, consistent backup process and policy for your hybrid environments. And so that's really one big focus of Veeam is making sure that that's all good and taken care of. So before we really dive in as well, I'd like to cover a few stats that we've seen. So one of the questions is, how often do these reasons actually happen? So we did a 1,500 person Veeam customer survey where we asked the question, what forms of data loss have you experienced within the cloud? And we saw by far many had that user or accidental deletion scenario where they literally deleted something and it was gone. Security threats were definitely something that popped up. And, retention policy gaps, is it myth, is it legend, is it something that happens? Well, we saw that really 19% is fairly high for thinking something that was protected when in fact it wasn't. Another question we get is, what is your organization's primary protection strategy for Office 365? What are you actually doing to make sure that your Office 365 data is protected? And it was pretty stunning that we've seen that 76% of businesses are actually left unprotected. So we asked the question, do you rely on native tools, which was 19%? We do not back up Office 365 data, which was at 57%, which is basically an admission that what Microsoft provides doesn't meet their requirements, but they still do not have a backup of Office 365. So that was a pretty stunning revelation. And we actually conducted this study 2 years ago, and the top 2 points would have been flipped. So the majority were thinking that they were relying on Microsoft's native tools and that that was actually a viable option for them, whereas we do not back up Office 365 data was actually less. So it's good to see that the number actually from 2 years ago it went from 82 down to 76. So it's good that within our own base, we're making a difference to help people understand why they need to actually back up that data. So I promised to go into the retention policies a little bit and kind of what Microsoft hangs on to for you and what Microsoft keeps backs up for you. But really, there's a lot of different, I know this is a bit of an eye chart, so just bear with me. But if you think of this holistically and look at it as a total package, Office 365 backup and retention does not protect you from data loss. It only protects you from data loss in a limited way. It's not an actual complete backup solution. Retention policies are constantly evolving. They tend to be very complex. If you look at some of these items, like deleted recycle bin items being deleted from the recycle bin after a month, or an employee leaving the company, and maybe your boss is asking, where's this guy's documents or emails or files? This can be a serious issue where after, a month or a 3-month period, those items are actually gone. And when they're gone for good. So this is kind of a good way of kind of viewing this. And actually, another thing is, this is actually from Microsoft as well, and it says that the average length of time from data compromise to discovery, so the time in which that security threat is discovered, is actually over 140 days. Yet the default settings in the system only protect between 30 and 90. So from Microsoft themselves, obviously the data compromise is discovery is much longer, and so really understanding what is protected and what isn't, and really making sure things are protected within that time span is very, very important. And, what we like to say is that Veeam is really more than just simply filling the gaps for this. Veeam Backup from Microsoft Office 365 is about, and you'll hear me say this quite often, it's about access and control. So it's about whether you have compliance concerns or initiatives you have to meet. It's all about making sure all of that data in Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, all of that is stored in one location for really easy recoverability to make sure that it's available to you when and how you need it. So I want to talk a little bit about the shared responsibility model itself, which is also from Microsoft. But before I do so, this is the question we always get: why do I need a backup? Microsoft takes care of it. And perhaps when you were sold into this idea of cloud and Office 365, you had this vision that the cloud takes care of everything. That okay, I no longer have to patch my Exchange server or whatever the case may be, and now the cloud takes care of this. And so that's the perception that we see widely in the market, is that the infrastructure and the data are all taken care of in the cloud, and that you're good to go. But unfortunately, it's actually a much scarier reality. The reality is that Microsoft takes care of the infrastructure, but the data that resides within Office 365 is still you as the customer, your responsibility for protection, whether that's short-term protection, long-term retention. It's all up to you. They provide a wonderful uptime of the infrastructure, but the data is up to you. So kind of looking at this from a shared responsibility perspective, this is actually the model that Microsoft provides to help users understand what their responsibility is in addition to their own. So you can see here on the top part of the screen, Microsoft's responsibility versus yours. The primary responsibility, like I mentioned, is the uptime of the service. So keeping the lights on, making sure that they promised you the service, they do a great job of keeping that up and running for you. Your responsibility is keeping access and control of that data that resides in Office 365. And the supporting technologies kind of speak very interestingly to this as well. So the way that Microsoft actually addresses this and the technologies that support this is actually data center to data center replication. But what we know about data center to data center replication is that what goes out one end must come out the other. And so if you get any one of those issues that we have mentioned, accidental deletion, ransomware, any of the above, it'll actually be replicated. So really having that backup is very critical. So your responsibility is having that copy of your data stored separate from the source in a different location. Recycle bin is not a backup. You need full data retention, whether that be short-term or long-term retention, filling any and all gaps. And then when it comes to security and regulatory, you have very different responsibilities. They have the infrastructure level, the physical security, the logical security, you're the data level. So all the nasty things that can happen to you, the accidental deletions, the malicious insiders, the malware, That's your responsibility from the data level perspective. From a regulatory, you are the data owner. Microsoft does not want to be the data owner. They are the data processor. They're two entirely different things. So your role as the data owner is to really answer to your own internal and corporate industry regulations and really, again, have total control and access of your data. So in essence, to kind of wrap the shared responsibility model up, without a backup of Office 365 data, you will have limited access and control of that data. Your retention policy gaps in data, there will be dangers in terms of those retention policy gaps. You'll be faced with security vulnerabilities as well as have the regulatory exposures. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a backup based on this, facing one of these factors, some of these risks. So now I kind of want to dive into how Veeam addresses this solution, this use case, the backing up Office 365. And we do that with Veeam Backup for Microsoft Office 365. So what this is, there's a paid version of this, and really it ensures that it really eliminates that risk, right? It eliminates that risk, gives you the control, make sure that you do not lose any access to your Office 365 data, whether that be Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, keeping you in the driver's seat, keeping you in control. In addition to the paid version of this, we actually have a community edition version. So there's no functionality limitations. So you have, if you have 10 users or less, this might be a really good solution for you where it's completely free, again, with no limitations on functionality. So what are some of the differentiators of Veeam Backup and Recovery versus for Office 365 versus some of these other solutions in the market? Well, first, it all comes down to location agnostic. So many of you may know that Veeam is partner agnostic, storage agnostic, cloud agnostic, and this really carries through into this solution where whether on-prem, Azure, AWS, or service provider, you can ensure that your data is backed up and protected. We pride ourselves very heavily on our quick restores of individual Office items. So you'll see in the next slide, actually, I'm going to dive into what those recovery capabilities kind of look like. But the bottom line is we, again, want to keep in control, meet those legal and compliance requirements with efficient e-discovery, and we enable that. So really quickly, I want to just cover, this may seem like another eye chart for you, but and you might be asking yourself, why do I need 25 different ways to restore? But in essence, all of these cover a specific use case, and we want to make sure that our customers have as much granularity as humanly possible. So you can restore data back into on-prem environments. You can store data, obviously, in Office 365 environments. Restore for OneDrive for Business. You can save and send, explore. There's functionality built in where you can actually compare an entire mailbox or folder inside Exchange and only restore what's missing from production without any duplicates. So there's a lot of thought and consideration has gone into all of these restore capabilities to really make this great for customers. And I just want to quickly cover some of the growth statistics. So obviously, we've had tremendous growth in this area. And many customers are really enjoying this. We've had 75,000 organizations that have downloaded the product, but representing 8.2 million users. And we have a variety of customers across all industries. So whether it's municipalities or hospitals or some of the other customers you see here, schools, a variety of different customers, both large and small. So quickly, I want to touch on how this actually works, kind of from a high level. So you can kind of see here, there's a simple diagram on how Veeam takes the Office 365 data and stores it into a backup repository. And it can come from Office 365 or it could come from on-prem Exchange. And then with Veeam Explorers, which are these special tools that we've had for some time, you can actually go into any one of these applications and restore any application level types of data that you want and restore them however you want, get them back to the user or whoever needs them really in just a few clicks. So just to kind of wrap this all up, really encourage you to take action here. So read up and share this 6 reasons report. So this is basically a more thorough version of the presentation I just gave. Really includes a lot of interesting data for your own consumption, or if you need to convince someone in your organization that this backup is necessary, you can share this with them. But it's a really super easy to read report that I highly recommend you download. And then see for yourself. I think this is just a very, very easily deployed solution. You could probably have it deployed in the next few minutes if you want it. So again, test it for free. You can get it free for 30 days. So I definitely encourage you to take a free trial today. So I think with that, I'll just open it up to any questions that we have.
Yes, great presentation, Edward. We do have some questions here for you. While we do that, I'm going to just bring up this poll question for the audience. And it says, what additional information would you like about the Veeam solution? Again, it's a multi-select question, so select one or multiple. And let's see here, Edward, first question. Francis is asking, does Veeam have an option for RBAC, for backup and restore operations?
RBAC. So that is that.
Yeah, role-based access control. Yeah.
Role-based access control. So that is actually something I'm not aware of, to be quite honest with you. I believe that's something. We may have. Yes.
Okay. Well, we can get back to that person on that one. Another question here. Ben is asking, how much SharePoint can I back up with the community or free version?
So I believe we do have limitations on that, and you can certainly read our user guide and check that out for yourself. But certainly, I believe that should be in the documentation. That should be in the technical documentation available to you.
Okay, cool. Another question here. Let's see. Frank is asking. So once you back up your data from Office 365, essentially, where can you put it? Can you store it in multiple clouds or on premises? What are your options there?
Yes, good question. So yes, you can absolutely store this on-prem in a variety of different ways, whether that's direct attached storage, local internal folders, the backup server of the backup server. You can also leverage the cloud in terms of Microsoft Azure. You can also leverage AWS. You can also take advantage of an ecosystem of service providers that will actually manage this on your behalf. So we do have many different storage targets that you can utilize.
Okay, nice.
In the cloud.
Another question here is the backup for Office 365, is that part of Veeam Backup and Replication, or is it a separate product?
That's a good question. So I'm sure that many of you know or maybe have heard of Veeam Backup and Replication in the market. That's actually our flagship product. So this is actually separate. We actually decided that since this was Office 365 was a separate use case, that it deserved its own product and should be created as such. So it's completely separate. So if you are a VBR customer today, you can certainly go and download this separately from your existing deployment. Okay.
Nice. Another question, what's the licensing model for the Office 365 backup solution?
Good question. So I didn't really touch on that. So essentially, our licensing is structured very similar to Microsoft's, so you wouldn't have to worry about shared mailboxes or anything of that nature. But we license, the way our structure is similar to Microsoft, user-based per user per month. And we have discounts available from between the 3 and the 5 years. So most of our customers prefer that commitment between 3 to 5 years to really take advantage of those nice discounts.
Okay, excellent. That makes it easy. Another question here. Ben is asking, can Veeam Backup for Office 365 be installed on the same Veeam Backup and Replication server that you might already have in place?
That is another good question. I would definitely refer to the Veeam.com for that as well, for all those ever-changing deployment models. Yes.
Right. Okay. And then, so if somebody wanted to get started with Veeam Backup for Office 365, do they start by going to Veeam.com and do they download a trial? Is that how it works?
Yes, absolutely. So you can go to Veeam.com. It should be in the drop-down there. It should be very easy to find, and from there you can simply download the 30-day free trial. It's very simple. Like I mentioned, it's a very, very easy process. So yeah, and if you have any issues at all, which I don't anticipate, but if you do, definitely reach out to our friendly support, and we'll help you do whatever you want to do.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions we have for now, but it's been great having you on the event today. Thank you so much, Edward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
For more information on Veeam Backup for Office 365, check out the handout that's available there for download in the audience console. It's entitled 6 Critical Reasons for Office 365 Backup. And, of course, visit Veeam.com and download that trial. And like Edward said, you can get up and running in about 15 minutes, and there's even a free community edition that you can use if you have a small Office 365 environment, and just try it out at no cost. So with that, it's time for our prize giveaway. We have 2 more Amazon $500 gift cards. Those are going out to Prakash Rajapal from Texas. Forgive me if I mispronounced it. Prakash Rajapal. I'll put that name as well as all of the others there in the audience question and answer area. Third gift card, final gift card is David Danielson from Minnesota. Congratulations to all the prize winners on today's event. Before you go, I want to remind you to check out the 10 on Tech podcast. It's over in the iTunes store. You can subscribe to that and tune in. And also make sure you follow us. That's ActualTech Media over on LinkedIn. That's where we post all of our latest and greatest events and interviews and blog content. If you are a potential sponsor of a future EcoCast or MegaCast event, reach out to us at connect@actualtechmedia.com, and we'd love to chat about having you on a future event. And then finally, I hope that you'll join us on our next event, which is a panel cast on disaster recovery planning. These are one of the events where we have multiple presenters on video, and we chat for about an hour, answer all the audience questions. You can even submit questions on the event landing page ahead of time to make sure you get those questions in early. So we hope that you'll join us on that event. Just visit events.actualtechmedia.com. In fact, at the end of this webinar, you'll be automatically redirected to that website if you'd like to register for some of these upcoming events. Again, thank you so much for being on today's Solutions for Office 365 and Azure EcoCast event. It's been great having everyone on. I had a good time. I learned a lot. I hope that you did too. And we'll see you on the next event. Have a great day.